Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Russell, and this is day 4 of the reading challenge. I will go over the observations that I have made of myself over the past 3 days, and today's day 4. So, the first thing is when you're preparing to go in front of an audience or go in front of a crowd. Number one is when you talk to them, maintain eye contact. That's very critical so that they take your message seriously and they feel like you're talking to them, and keep contact with as many people in the audience as possible. If you're speaking into a phone or a device like I am right now, maintain eye contact with the central lens that you know is capturing whatever you're saying for as long as possible. Number 2 is before you go in front of an audience, either in person or online, remember to go over the content before you start the event. It's important that you get familiar about the flow of the content and what you're going to talk about long before the actual event or the session begins. And number 3 is that by going over these things, it will become necessary that you make observations and preparatory notes so that you build your own flow in terms of how you want to deliver this message as well. Okay. Today, day 4. So those are the 3 takeaways, and I'll see what the takeaway is from today's meeting. Today I'll be reading about the role of the government and in the high level role of government in broad economic terms. What are pure public goods? Okay, under public goods, you will realize that there is something called the rivalry and non-rivalry of a consumption. I'll read about that, and you'll come to realize about something called relative buying power. If you are talking to people, what they call awqat, in colloquial terms, it may not be the best reference, but it's a reality. And understanding that and being aware of it is what is critical to success. Okay, it's a bad example, but it's an economic term. Okay, so it's just a reality. So with that, I'm going to start again. The last time I've been missing out on the name a lot. Okay, so I'm reading from Day to Day Economics, okay, by Satish T. Deodhar, and this is a part of the IIM Ahmedabad recommended text to read during the course. That being said, and today I'll be going back a chapter. Yesterday we spoke about taxes, etc. That typically comes second. It's first important that you understand what we'll be talking about today, right? So I'll be reading from the first chapter, which is a medley of government and private sector. Okay, and the reading starts now. Chapter 1: The medley of government and private sector. We do not defend the perversions of natural economic systems, but because they are perversions merely, we shall remove them and keep the system. This was said by John Bates Clark. The role of the government. The institution known as government, that is chosen by the people, varies in its manifestations in different countries and can vary from democracy to autocracy. The basic function, whatever its form, remains the same. That is, to define the rights as well as the obligations of citizens and to secure them by enacting and enforcing laws. The government enacts the laws. Its judiciary metes out judgments if those laws are violated. The police maintain law and order. The defense services offer protection from external aggression. And once these come together, then the congenital framework is provided by the government to its people It's after that that market forces ensure the production and the exchange of goods and services, leading to the efficient allocation and usage of resources for the country. One is aware that the private sector offers a zillion goods and services to the market. Interestingly, however, some find that economic activities such as power generation, water supply, roads, and postal services are offered by the government. In fact, the government is going beyond the free market forces. In fact, the government going beyond free market is also involved with formulating policies to try and curtail unemployment and to control inflation. One should expect the economic activities such as the government, I'll repeat that. One would expect the economic activities which the government undertakes to be from those undertaken by private sector. However, the experience of the last several decades shows that the government has undertaken diverse activities such as manufacturing of watches, bread, and offering air transport services, the same as those which the private sector also provides. Thus, there is a medley of goods and services that are offered by the government and private sectors together. Which principles then decide the distribution of economic activities between the government and the private sector? Is the overlap justified? And the following discussions should shed some light on that matter. Some of you may have personally watched a spectacle at the Wagah border, and that separates India and Pakistan and the state of Punjab. The macho competitive beating retreat ceremony, enacted mainly by soldiers on either side of the border, is orchestrated by armies of the two governments. Now, this leads to some important questions being asked. 1. Why are defense services provided only by the government? Is it that soldiers demonstrate patriotism and bravery only when they work with the government? Or are the reasons more fundamental? When we see a postage stamp, we wonder what the picture and the wording represent. There is a tremendous diversity in stamps in terms of images, colors, language, currency, denominations, and the countries that issue them. But there is one thing that is common to the postage stamps. They are issued by governments. Stamps represent the prices. I'll lift this up so that I'm losing eye contact. And one more time. Stamps represent price paid by the consumer for the postal service that is rendered by the government. While the private courier services are gaining ground, the service of delivering ordinary postcards, inland letters, and aerograms and money orders to and from every nook and corner of India is still provided only by the government. Why has the private sector not entered the market? Or does the government not permit it to enter? We will try and find answers to such and similar questions by drawing attention to the market failures that arise from the various factors such as non-rivalry of consumption, non-excludability, natural monopoly, and externalities. Once you understand these concepts, you will have a touchstone to help you judge whether or not certain economic activities undertaken by the government are justified or not. Let's move on to the topic of pure public goods. For a moment, travel back in time to your high school days. On a lazy Saturday afternoon, to refresh yourself from the boring homework, you stand on the balcony of your apartment, seeking inspiration. Suddenly you hear the beating of drums on the street below. A street performer and his wife, with the neighbors in the balconies. And his wife, I'll repeat that. Suddenly you hear the beating of drums on the street below. A street performer and his wife are inviting you to watch an acrobatic show. You, along with your neighbors in their balconies and the few others on the street, passive spectators all in one, standing and watching the performance. Once the show is over, the spectators disperse. The husband and wife team now looks up at each balcony, silently pleading for a few rupees. At that instant, you get a reality check. You run inside and sheepishly ask your parents whether or not you should give something to the couple. It is safe to assume that the performing couple barely makes two ends meet. No wonder then that the street performing is vanishing as a profession. The performing couple is working hard to operate a private enterprise, but somehow market forces fail to deliver even a bare minimum profit to the couple. Why do you think this happens? If you closely study the incident, you may identify two factors that lead to market failure. One is non-rivalry of consumption. You watched the street performance, but you did not prevent others from watching it too. Thus, there is no rivalry in the consumption of the service among the different consumers. That is not so with other goods. Say, for example, a car or a tube of toothpaste. If you buy a car, the same car is not available to anyone else. In other words, there is a rivalry of consumption and of competition among consumers, which forces them to pay the price to secure possession of a car. The second factor, that is a given market price. I'll repeat. The second factor in this is at a given market price, the relative buying power of different consumers might exclude some of them from buying the car or the toothpaste. In the case of street performing, the couple, this is excludability. In case of the street performing couple, this excludability feature is missing because they cannot prevent individuals either physically or by charging the appropriate price from viewing the performance. Thus, due to the non-rivalry and the non-excludability of the service which they provide, the problem of free riding occurs and the market fails to deliver. Ergo, street performers cannot run a profitable business. There are several instances of services that are non-rival in consumption. And non-excludable. Such services are termed as pure public goods. The above examples will perhaps make it clear to you why national defense is a pure public good. A private firm cannot provide national defense profitably, for the consumption of the service is non-rival and non-excludable. On the individual level, why would anyone express how much they value security, and why would anyone pay for it when they cannot have a free ride, when they can have a free ride at the expense of the others. It follows then that the market will fail to deliver, making it necessary for the central government of the country to provide national defense. The same idea can be extended to various activities such as the police force, low risk, low traffic rural roads, lighthouses, street lights, amongst others. Private firms will offer these services. I'll repeat, private firms will not offer these services because the free market cannot provide the required environment for making a profit. In this sense, the market fails to deliver with these services, and the institution of government has to undertake these economic activities. Even in hardcore capitalist economies, these services are provided by the government. Can you think of such services? The next time you are waiting at a traffic signal, take a moment to look around you. Have you ever seen a private operator offer the traffic signal to its consumers? But of course, now you are in the driver's seat. You know the traffic signals are pure good for everyone concerned. And with that, I end today's reading. Today was day 4. I thank you for staying through the video. I'm hoping that these readings are useful to you. My name is Russell Brown. Thank you for joining me on day 4 of the reading challenge or the 1 point challenge. Have a wonderful day.